So, welcome back, guys. Hope you are all doing fantastic. Though I should be a jerk saying that, but I hope you are all doing fantastic. Well, today's video is a bit of a special one for you and for me. Why is it special? Well, recently I got a chance to interview Michael Grasso. Now, Michael Grasso is someone who has been in the filmmaking and multimedia industry for more than 15 years. That guy is damn experienced, and I am too much honored to get the chance to interview him. I asked him many questions and he gave me many tips for beginner filmmaker and ambitious filmmaker like you and me. So he gave some quality guidance for us, the ambitious and beginner filmmakers. So the interview is a bit of a raw because the thing got suddenly decided and we had to just throw on the interview quickly. So the interview is a bit of a raw thing, but unedited, so you can just listen to that because the audio is to the point, so you will have no problem on hearing that. But I suggest you one thing: if you have that passion for filmmaking, watch it till the end, because the last thing which he says about the cameras and the gear is worth noting out. So let me roll in the interview. Well, the video quality may be a bit trash because of the sudden thing. His quality is to the point, but I recorded with the front camera of my phone, so it's not that good. But the quality guidance which he gave is mint. So you should definitely hear that if you are a beginner filmmaker. So let's roll in the interview. So my first question to you is, in this situation where we are currently right now, how do you think that filmmaking will change in this present situation?
Well,
in the near future?
Yeah, so I think obviously you're seeing a lot of it already, even with a lot of the news reporters working from home, and even shows like, you think American Idol, The Voice, a lot of those shows have moved to the virtual environment. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're kind of sending out these kits, where you get like a ring light and you get some sort of camera, whether you use your cell phone or, like a DSLR. And I know like Canon it's a great example. They just released a EOS webcam utility. And actually I'm using it right now. So I have a EOS RP set up here. Behind me is my R. And I'm actually running the video right through just the USB cable using that utility, which is pretty amazing. So you get, good quality video. And I think that as long as you can kind of put those parameters out there of how to set it up, how to do it, you can still produce some really great content, even in the virtual environment. So I think that's going to change a lot of, that type of digital broadcast. Now in the world of like film, I think it's a little more challenging because obviously you still need actors on set, but I do feel that sets are going to change. You're probably going to see a lot more of like rear projection work. And I've heard that that's kind of already happening, where everything's being done in a studio with some sort of projection, or they have these
VFX is dominating more.
Absolutely, yeah. All the visual effects work is going to just expand, so that you can do more green screen, blue screen. You can do more of that in a controlled environment and not have to be on location so much, not have to be out in the public. So I think that you're going to see a lot more shift in that direction.
Do you think that this shift is kind of good or is kind of to the bad side?
Well, I mean, we're in 2020, so I think the technology has drastically improved. So obviously it's a good thing on a technology front. We have amazing cameras that can shoot 8K RAW, I mean, we have just the ability to create an LCD screen or like an OLED display that is 100 by whatever some feet wide. So I think because of that technology, I'm looking forward to the future of like visual effects and how that all plays. And I think it's also challenging then for like the cinematographers to say, okay, well, now that you're using these pieces, you're using rear projection more, you're using, you know, those technologies. How are you going to make it work with camera angles? How are you going to make it work with, you know, lighting and all of that? So I think it's a good thing because it creates a little more challenge. But at the same time, like, I'm still somewhat of a traditionalist. I like being on location for certain things. So
of course, that's
yeah, you know, I'm hoping that at some point we get back to that. It obviously it's not going to be today, but you know, a few months from now or whatever, we might be in a better place to be able to do that. So
yes, we hope so. We hope it.
Yeah, for sure.
So my next question to you is, what will you give? Suppose I am an aspiring filmmaker, means at least I have an ambition for that. So will you give me some kind of generalized advice of which path should I follow?
Yeah. So first off, the simplest thing to do is what you're doing to kind of, you know, I learned a lot on my own just by watching a lot of YouTube. So YouTube's a fantastic resource for, you know, everything. And it's funny because you know, I went through a Premiere Pro training a while back, and there was a piece, like, I mean, we only spent maybe a half hour on multicam recording in Premiere Pro and being able to edit multicam. And I hadn't really shot anything multicam in a while after that. So, and then I had a project where I shot, you know, with multiple cameras, and I couldn't quite remember, like, oh, what do I need to do to actually get it all set up when I'm ready to edit? And I just jumped on YouTube, you know, put that in. I watched probably like a 6-minute tutorial, and I was, you know, up and running, had my multicam going, and I was switching and editing in real time. And, you know, so I think starting there is a great place to start. I wouldn't stress too much about...
Yes, YouTube has turned into... Yes,
no,
please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Yes, YouTube has turned into a pretty solid kind of a film course or anything you want to learn, right? Because earlier you didn't have that huge amount of information just in front of you, and now you were just getting everything you want. From cinema cameras to your smartphone, you were just bang on.
Yeah, actually, so I'll put a plug in for Aperture Lighting. So Aperture has a fantastic page. If you're not following it, highly recommend following their YouTube channel. They do these great little, like, they call it 4-minute film school.
4-minute tutorials.
Yeah, and they basically show you an entire lighting setup. And they shoot, I mean, now, so the first time they show it, they shoot on like a red camera. So they're shooting, you know, whatever, 6K or 8K on a red. And then they basically do the same thing on like an iPhone 10. And it's kind of more just to prove that it's not necessarily the camera in particular that you have, but how the lighting, the atmosphere, the set decoration, you know, the acting, you know, there's so many more pieces that go into it, you know, than just the equipment alone. So I think that's a fantastic one to follow. The other thing that I'll plug too is like LinkedIn Learning. If you're not on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's a fantastic, you know, way to connect with other cinematographers, other filmmakers. But there's also a learning.
Is it much more effective than Instagram?
It is in a business sense. So on a social platform, you know, Instagram, YouTube, you know, even Facebook user groups are awesome to follow. But as far as a more, you know, you really want to get in the industry, you want to talk to experts, you kind of want to get connected to people like that. LinkedIn's the way to do that because it's kind of the professional side. But they also have professional learning, which is really good. And there's courses that you can go to the LinkedIn Learning tab, search, you know, digital filmmaking, DSLR filmmaking, you know, kind of filmmaking 101. And there's some really great courses out there that will walk you through step by step, and they talk about different types of lighting, different sound techniques, all of that. So it's just another great resource.
Yeah, of course. And now I'm getting on a bit of controversial things. Well, everybody says that gear doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, we come to see that the people like Peter McKinnon, says that just do it, and then he uses a Canon C200. So isn't that controversial that at the end of the day, we need good gear to just reach to the audience?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think it's a good point that yes, but these guys are also they've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They're probably making a decent amount of money per month from YouTube. That whatever, to go buy a C200 is nothing. They all drive Teslas, I mean, like that they can afford to do that. So when it comes down to it, yeah, sure. I mean, if I had an endless budget, I mean, I'd probably be shooting, I'd have a, Sony, whatever it is.
FX9.
The FX9 plugged in over here, and I'd be filming on that, So, I mean, the funny thing is, though, is if you go back and you look on YouTube and you look at some of the videos that were created, years ago, that were shot on a Canon T2i, they look fantastic. Then they still look great today. And whether you have a T2i, T3i, 70D, 80D, any of those are still solid cameras. Even the Nikon, I forget what it is. I think it's like the 3400 or something like that. They're still 24 megapixel, good size APS-C sensor. And they shoot great 1080 HD video. So if you're putting content for YouTube, that's the majority of the content that's going out there, and it looks fantastic. So I think it really depends on what your end goal is, to choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah, that is all right. But when you just see those guys going to Norway, going to Iceland, it is just kind of intimating that those guys are going to Norway, and those guys at the end of the day are saying that, man, you can do it with a Nikon D5200, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
So that is kind of intimating or overwhelming also.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think a lot of it is really, obviously lenses are important. I mean, you can, like I said, you can still take an older, DSLR body that
vintage lens
does, 1080p or something. But if you have a really good quality lens on it that can go down to, like 1.8 or 1.2 or anything like that, you can do so much with that. So, yeah, I mean, gear's important to some degree, but, it's also how you're using it and how you're putting together, your body and your lenses to really, craft a certain look or certain image.
Do you think that YouTube is a good enough platform for filmmakers?
You know what? I think it's a great place to at least get content out. I mean, YouTube has grown dramatically in the last 10 years. You think about just and even more and more today, it's like, oh yeah, I just watched this YouTube video. Oh, I just watched, like everybody is talking about YouTube and content creation, and that's the main platform. Obviously, like Vimeo, which is
Vimeo, yes.
Vimeo is an awesome platform as well, and that's really like there's higher quality. You can choose certain quality outputs, and the playback is a lot better for if you're really setting up like a page to have like a demo reel or something like that. I think that's a great place to do it. But honestly, I mean, with YouTube being a free platform and you can quickly get stuff out there, I still think it's fantastic. I think it's definitely a great place to at least, get your stuff seen.
Yeah, so as we are talking about the gear, what gear would you recommend for an aspiring or a beginner filmmaker under, suppose, a budget of $2,000?
Okay, that's still pretty decent. So the first question is, I guess you really need to understand whether or not you want to shoot 4K or if you're okay with 1080. So the thing is I would say 98% of the work that I put out there just goes out in 1080 because most people are watching it on their computer, their cell phone, or their home TV, and 1080 looks totally fine. It's good quality. It's all you really need, if that's how people are receiving your content. The added advantage of going 4K is obviously you've got a much larger space to work with. So if you want to crop in, or you want or that people are definitely going to be watching your content on a 4K screen afterwards.
So you can just downscale it to 1080p, then it will be much more better.
And absolutely, yeah. So I think that's a good, kind of like to understand whether or not you want 4K, whether it's necessary or whatever. Once you've kind of made that decision, you've got a couple options. So you can go to something, like previous model 70D, 80D. I like personally the Canon colors overall.
Yes.
Those are good bodies to start with. Even the T, like 3i, T4i, T5i, all great cameras. Those all shoot 1080, really high quality, 24 frames per second. You can set the profile to a neutral profile. You can desaturate it and get a little bit of dynamic range out of it if you're going to do some color grading. So I think those are kind of a good place to start. And of course, if you're a Nikon user, whatever the equivalents are, if you're a Sony user, whatever the equivalents are. And then even like the Panasonic. So like the Lumix G7 is an awesome little 4K mirrorless camera. I think right now, like on B&H, you can go out there and I think, under $500, you can get camera, 2 lenses, jump on Amazon, get an extra battery. So for, like $500, you've got a really amazing piece of technology that allows you to shoot 4K. And it just looks great. So, that would kind of be where I would start. The other key things is obviously audio, tripod, lighting. I think lighting's far more important than most people realize. So just simple things, like soft boxes, foam boards, LED lights. You can find a lot of that stuff pretty inexpensively out there, and but you can do a lot with it. So the more you learn about lighting and techniques, you'll be able to see then that you can do a lot with.
So it is, at the end of the day, the learning curve that matters, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's huge, is to invest some time in really learning techniques, learning lighting, learning positioning, learning camera movement, all of that type of stuff. It all comes to play to create just something really great.
Well, so you just made me believe that if you hand me a Canon EOS R5, I will not be able to shoot as Peter McKinnon. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Obviously that camera is going to be a great camera when they release that, with some of the raw capabilities. And I think that's supposed to have 4K at 120 frames, which is pretty cool. I haven't really shot a lot of like slow motion stuff. I had one video I did at like 240 frames a second, but I actually shot that on my iPhone because it can do, 240 frames a second, and it looked fantastic. So I think that certain tools that you have for certain things it's great, but at the end of the day, it's more composition, technique, lighting, the whole thing that comes together. So
all right, so I want to tell you that you told me that you are in 15 years in this multimedia thing, right?
Yep.
So, would you just tell me some of the mistakes we as beginners should avoid, which you did?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Just take it personally.
Yeah, no, you definitely make a lot of mistakes along the way. I am trying to think of like one of the biggest ones. I think a lot of it, it's funny because we talk a lot about gear. Obviously, my channel, I talk a lot about gear. I've gone back and forth on a lot of different stuff, and at the end of the day, I kind of come back to the Canon cameras. I played around with Red before. I had a Z cam. I've had a Blackmagic. I've shot on all those things. Cinema lenses versus DSLR lenses. I think at the end of the day, the biggest mistake is don't go out there and just try to buy the greatest thing that's out there right now. I think that's a mistake. What the biggest thing you can do is, like you said, is focus on more of the learning
curve.
Exactly, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest areas that you should focus on first.
Thank you. So let's do it a little bit of rapid fire, right? Okay. Are you okay with that?
Sure, let's go for it.
Which is the better cameras? Sony A6400 versus the Canon M50. No biasness towards Canon. Just do that, okay?
Sure. So, it's tough to compare because you're going from full frame. It depends on what you want full frame, or if you're okay with more of like the, the little M50 is really small, lightweight, compact, kind of nice.
A6400 is the same, pal.
Oh, it is. It's the same sensor size, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I'm sure they're both fantastic. I haven't used either of those, so I can't talk personal experience, but I did pick up, I held an M50 the other day, and it depends on what you're doing with it. Vlogging wise, I guess it would be great. The nice thing about it is the dual pixel autofocus. I know Sony's autofocus system has gotten better, but at the end of the day, I still think the Canon autofocus is great. So if you're going to use autofocus, I would lean that direction.
All right. So, do you think Fujifilms make the best camera for videography?
I don't know. What I will say is I've seen some fantastic stuff out there with like the X-T3 and the X-T4. They're really, spec-wise, they're amazing cameras. Like, what you can do with them is pretty amazing. Picture profile-wise, color rendition, I think they're really, really solid. But then again, I think, it depends on what you're doing with it. If you want a really good camera just kind of out of the box to kind of set it and forget it, I think the Fuji cameras look really good. But if you're going to do more grading and you want a little dynamic range, you're kind of better off going with something that has either C-Log or S-Log or V-Log, using a log format, and kind of going that route.
Suppose today you have to throw out all of your lenses, only get to keep one. Which one would you keep?
One. Wow. I would probably say the Canon 50mm 1.8.
All right. Any reasons for that?
Yeah, so obviously they always call it the Nifty 50. I think it's probably, has that name for a reason. It probably is the best all-around general lens. Now, granted, it's, 50mm is, kind of medium frame. So if you want a wider shot, you basically just have to back up, But if you're doing kind of, those medium shots, the close-up shots, and most of your content is that kind of framing, the 50 millimeter is just kind of like the perfect, lens. And the fact that it drops down to a 1.8, you could open it up. It's amazing in low light. You get, just a beautiful image out of it. Super sharp. That would be the one lens.
Yes. Well, if you are suggesting me today to buy a camera as a beginner filmmaker under $1,000, just suggest me one camera.
So if you're okay with just 1080, I would probably say the Canon 70D with the 50 millimeter lens. I think if you got this combination, you could easily do that for, and you might even save a couple $100 from that budget. And I think you'd be amazed what you can get out of that.
Okay. And if 4K is a priority?
If 4K is a priority, that's a little more challenging. What I would probably do is look at if you can get like a used GH4. You can find them out there for probably like $500, $600. And then of course get the Panasonic Lumix 50 millimeter, or no, it's a 25 millimeter. Since it's a micro four thirds, it comes in at a 50 millimeter, 2 times crop. But that is kind of the equivalent of the Canon Nifty 50. So I think if you want it to 4K, I would probably go that route, and that would give you similar options.
Okay. So the last questions, I will not disturb you anymore.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you, bro. So the last question is, after I have bought a camera, which is the next most important thing? Audio, lighting?
Well, obviously audio is extremely important, because they always say like audio is half the picture. So, if you shoot something that looks amazing, but the audio is junk, nobody's going to watch it. If you shoot something that, the quality of the video is a little shaky, but the audio is fantastic, people still generally watch it because they can hear it clearly and kind of understand the story or understand what's going on. So I would say that, your image and audio kind of go in sync. And then the next piece is the lighting, because that's where technique comes in. That's where, the look of what you're going for comes into play.
Okay. Thank you, bro. Had a very good time. Learned so much.
So, hope you enjoyed the interview. I personally learned a lot, and I hope so you have done the same. And if you have enjoyed the video, I have Michael's channel linked below. Just go to his channel, show him some love, and just comment down below that hi from Dick's channel, and hit that subscribe button in his channel. But just because I'm asking you to subscribe to his channel, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because fire content on photography and filmmaking is coming out every single week, and you as an ambitious and a beginner filmmaker or photographer just like me shouldn't miss out this content. If you like the interview, hit that like button, because that will help the YouTube algorithm to just help recognize me, and tell me in the comment box below which part of the interview was your favorite. Well, until then, stay safe, stay isolated, wash your hands, follow your government guidelines, and stay creative, because that is the only way in which you can get through this quarantine thing. Until then, until next time, peace.